classification of cost on the basis of elements. So here we are seeing one is material, another one is labor, third one is expense. Again, if you observe, this material has been subclassified into two types: direct material, indirect material. We will see further. Next, again if you observe, this labor is also subclassified into two types: direct labor, indirect labor. Again, this expenses is also subclassified into two types: direct expense, indirect expense. So in today's session, let us learn what is the difference between direct and indirect cost. Coming to the first one is direct material. Coming to the first one is what ma? Direct material. Let us see what is the meaning of direct material. So if you see the classification of cost on the basis of elements, it is classified into how many types? Three types. One is material, second one is labor, third one is expense. Correct. Again if you observe, this material is subclassified into how many types? Two types. Let us see one by one. So what do you mean by direct material? What do you mean by direct material? Any raw material which is involved directly in the production of finished goods is known as direct material. So what do you mean by direct material? Any raw material which is involved directly in the production of finished goods, that we will call it as a direct material. So we will see one example for better understanding purpose. Before that, let us take another one more definition also here: indirect material. So what do you mean by indirect material? In a simple layman language, we can say any raw material which is involved indirectly in the production of finished goods is known as indirect material. So, what is the major difference here? Direct, indirect. So, direct material, we are saying that any raw material which is involved directly in the production of a finished good in order to produce a finished good. So, if any material is involved directly or linked to such production of finished good, that we are classifying here it as a direct. Whereas, any raw material which is auxiliary or which is involved indirectly in the production of a finished good, that we are classifying here it as an indirect material. So, what is direct and what is indirect? Let us see with the help of one example here. For example, let us take shed. You know shed, right? So, this shed is nothing but which good? Finished good, everyone knows. This shed is nothing but finished good. But in order to manufacture this shed, we require the couple of raw materials. Yes or no? Yes. So, what are those raw materials? One is cloth we require. Another one is to stitch this cloth we require threads, we require buttons, we require labels. Correct? Yes. Now, if you observe here, cloth is also raw material, thread is also raw material, buttons is also raw material, labels is also raw material. Then, which is direct, which is indirect? You can see here practically. The t-shirt which I am wearing here, the Patshala t-shirt which I am wearing here, this is nothing but a finished good which is ready for use for class recording purposes. But if you see, what is the majority of the portion it is visible on this t-shirt? Cloth, obviously. So, this cloth is directly involved in the production of this t-shirt. That is the reason this cloth is classified. This cloth is classified as a direct material here. This cloth is classified as a which material here? Direct material, because the majority of the portion in manufacturing the t-shirt is nothing but cloth only we require. That is the reason this cloth is classified as a direct material. Next, to stitch this cloth we require threads. Correct? The threads is not visible at all. Correct? Unless you see particularly by using binocular or your telescope, you cannot see that. Correct? The threads, buttons and the label backside, whatever this it is there, this is classified as a indirect . This is classified as a which material? Indirect material. These two things together we can produce the shirt here. So, this is the majority classification between a direct material and indirect material. So, this is the first element of cost. We can take another one more example also. Wooden table, you know wooden table, right? In the case of wooden table is nothing but a finished good which is ready for use. But to manufacture the wooden table, what do we require? Wood we require, nails we require, fevicol we require, some other raw material is also required. Here, the majority of the portion in the wooden table will be what? Wood, obviously. That wood will be classified as a which material here? Direct material. But whereas the nails, the fevicol which we will use for the manufacturing of that wooden table, that will be classified as an indirect raw material. So, this is how we will classify a material as direct, as indirect. Understood? So, let us go to the next one, second element we can say. Let us go to the next second element. The second element is labor. Now, this labor is also called as employee cost. in a dignified manner in the cost accounting standards. We are calling it as a employee cost. Here how you will study accounting standards and Indian accounting standards in the account subject, in the same way in the cost accounting subject also in the further classes we will be studying cost accounting standards. Yes, in the cost accounting also we are having cost accounting standards that we will study in the further classes. Here the material which we discussed, the first element is nothing but a cost accounting standard 6. Cost accounting standard 6 deals with the material. In the case of material, when we classify what we have to include, what we have to exclude, what we have to treat normal, what we have to treat abnormal, all these things we will study in the future classes. In these classes we will be studying only the technical terms and what is the meaning of those technical terms. Next, so after the discussion of first element, the second element we have is labor. This labor has been classified into two types. One is direct labor, another one is indirect labor. So let us see what do you mean by a direct labor. Any person or employee who has been engaged directly in the production of finished goods is known as direct labor. So what do you mean by direct labor? It represents any person or any employee who has been engaged directly in the production of a finished good. That we can classify it as a direct labor. Then let us see another one, indirect labor. So what do you mean by indirect labor? Any person or employee who has been engaged indirectly in the production of finished goods is known as indirect labor. So here if you see the difference between direct and indirect labor, so any person who has been engaged directly in the production of a finished good or providing a service, that person we can classify it as a direct labor. Whereas any person who has been engaged indirectly in the production of a finished good or providing a service, that person we can classify it as a indirect labor. So let us see one example for better understanding purpose. We know car assembly company. Like we can take an example Kia also, okay, car assembly company, where they will assemble different spare parts and they will manufacture a car. Only the engine will belongs to the company, rest many of the spare parts will be procured from different places and different organizations, and they will assemble a finished good, that is called car. Okay na? So in the car assemble company, if you see, basically there will be a many types of labor, but we can see two types of labor here. The first one is technical engineer. Technical engineer. Second one is floor manager, or we can say supervisor. Floor manager, supervisor. So we know that to assemble a car, minimum how many number of spare parts do we require to assemble one car? Minimum requirement is 2000 plus spare parts. 2000 plus spare parts is required to assemble one car. To assemble one car, we require 2000 plus spare parts. Then which spare part we need to assemble first? Which spare part we need to assemble first? Because when we got our car repair, when we got our bike repair, we will take it to a mechanic, correct? So in the mechanic shop, the mechanic, he will come and he will remove the each and every spare part, and he will check with every spare part which one is working, which one is not working, and after replacement, after repairs, he will reassemble the car. But for a general person to remove and to assemble a car is not so easy task. So a technical engineer is nothing but a person who possesses the technical knowledge of assembling a car. Which spare part needs to be assembled first? Which spare part needs to be assembled last? If you see the tires of a car, whether we will assemble the tires of the car first? The answer is no. The first we will start assembly process with engine, car engine. After car engine, we will come to the body shape of the car. After body shape of the car, we will assemble one by one slowly, correct? So this is how the process will go on. So all these technical knowledge will be possessed by a person called as technical engineer. The technical engineer knows which spare part needs to be assembled first and which spare part needs to be assembled in the last. And if you see here, there will be a floor manager also. For every floor, wherever the assembly process is going on, for each and every floor, a separate manager will be there to take care whether the employees are coming on time or not, whether the employees are working or not, any employee is absent, any employee is present, what is the status of the work, and which spare part needs to be assembled, which job needs to be processed. All these type of things will be taken care by the floor manager. Here the floor manager will not not be engaged directly in the car assemble process, but indirectly he will manage the people who is doing that job. Here, that is the reason the technical engineer is classified here as a direct labor. This technical engineer is classified as a which labor here? Direct labor. But whereas this floor manager is indirectly supporting the manufacturing assembly process, that is the reason here this floor manager will be classified as indirect labor. So this is the major classification between direct and indirect. Another one more example also we can take. The best example is educational institution. In the case of educational institution, you will be seeing different types of labor. One is teachers, one is administration staff. Here the teachers will be classified as a direct labor. Why? Because these teachers will be directly engaged with the students day-to-day basis. On day-to-day basis, these teachers will be directly engaged with the students. That is the reason These teachers will be classified as a direct labor. Whereas the administration staff is also required to run an educational institution to take care many other things. This administration staff will be considered as an indirect labor. Why? Because they won't engage with the students on regular basis, on day-to-day basis. So like this we can take many examples for direct as well as indirect labor. So this is the second element. Next, coming to the third element, we have under the elements of cost, the third element is expenses. Again, this expenses has been classified into two types. One is direct expense, another one is indirect expense. Let us see what are those. Any expense other than direct material and direct labor. Any expense other than direct material and direct labor directly linked with the production of finished goods is known as direct. So any expense other than direct material, direct labor, which is directly linked with the production activity, then we can call it as a direct expense. Here the example for direct expense we can see higher charges paid for special machinery during the construction. During the construction we required some special machineries like concrete mixer machine, JCB, road roller, certain type of machineries we require. Generally we don't purchase those machines, we will hire those machines. Generally we don't purchase those machines, we will hire those machines for the construction purpose. So this higher charges paid for special machinery, this we can classify it as a direct expense. Not only that, royalty paid on production. Royalty paid on production. Generally we will see books, they will sell in the market, but the author of the books will be different and the publishing company will be different. For example, if you see financial accounting is there, the financial accounting, the author is Ravikant Miryala. The author for the financial accounting is who? Ravikant Miryala. But the book is published by Himalaya Publishers. Here the Himalaya publisher is ultimately they are printing and they are selling to the general public. But who is the author of the book? Ravikant Miryala. So for printing that book and in order to sell to the general public, the Himalaya publishers, they have to pay certain amount for each book whatever they are printing. The amount here whatever they are paying for that printing, that we will call it as a here royalty. Next, indirect expense. Next one is indirect expense. So what do you mean by this indirect expense? any indirect expense other than indirect material and indirect labor which is involved indirectly with the production of finished goods is known as indirect. So, what do you mean by indirect expense here? Any expense other than indirect material, indirect labor which is involved indirectly in the production of a finished good, that we can classify it as a indirect expense here. Example here you can take. Electricity bill which is paid for an organization, that we can classify it as a what? Indirect expense. Why? Because it is nowhere linked with the production of a finished good. But to produce, to convert a raw material into finished good, compulsory what do we require? Indirect electricity is required. Water bill. So, whatever the water we are procuring, whatever the water we are consuming for the production activity here, the water is also nowhere linked here. The water is also nowhere linked with the production of a finished good. Not only that, marketing expenses, promotional expenses, all these are the examples we can take for indirect expenses. So, in depth, if you see the classification of elements, we are having three elements here. What are those? One is material, another one is labor, and the third one is what? Expenses. So, this material is subclassified into two types: direct material, indirect material, and the labor is subclassified into two types: direct labor, indirect labor. And this expense has been subclassified into two types: direct expense, indirect expense. Now, the sum of direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, these three things together we will call it as a prime cost. We will call it as a which cost here? Prime cost. Let us see. Direct material plus direct labor plus direct expenses. These three things together we will call it as a prime cost. The sum of direct material, direct labor, direct expenses, all these three things together we will call it as a prime cost. Next, same way, sum of indirect material plus indirect labor plus indirect expenses. These three things together These three things together we'll call it as a over. These three things together we'll call it as a what ma? Overheads.